It's Michael Popok, LegalAF. We got a new letter from Sam Alito, Justice of the United States Supreme Court, to the United States Senate, refusing to recuse and disqualify himself from matters involving Donald Trump or any of the pending matters that are before the court, including the long-awaited immunity decision, because he says the two flags that were flown at his house that are both pro-Trump flags, pro-insurrectionist flags, and pro-Christianity in government flags were not flown by him. He doesn't like flags, according to the letter. They were flown by his wife. The wife ate his homework. The dog put the flagpole, ran the flag up the flagpole to see if anybody would salute. According to Sam Alito, I don't even like flags. I don't like flagpoles. And I've asked my wife to take them down before, and she won't because she has a First Amendment expression. No, she doesn't. And if you're living in the house under her roof, then you have an obligation to ensure that the public believes that you are fair and impartial. And I don't know in what world, in what universe, people, reasonable people, or to paraphrase from Sam Alito's own letter, how a reasonable person who is not motivated by political or ideological considerations or a desire to affect the outcome of a Supreme Court case would conclude that the occupants of those houses, including one Justice Sam Alito, doesn't already have his big fat thumb on the scales of justice against them. Now, Sam Alito decided, because Chief Justice Roberts is a coward, he is circling the drain and will go down the drain as one of the worst Supreme Court justices, chiefs of all time. And if he had any moral conviction whatsoever, Chief Justice Roberts would step down now and allow Joe Biden to appoint the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. But I digress into a fantasy world that doesn't exist. I'd also like unicorns in my backyard that crap gold bricks, and that's not happening either. What also is not happening is Sam Alito or any of the MAGA right-wing justices seeing anything wrong that would have them recuse themselves. Wives who are insurrectionists, like Clarence Thomas, who lobbied elected officials and election officials to steal the election from Joe Biden, the rightful winner, that's fair game. They're the wives. They're the spouses. A spouse wants to run something up a flagpole and have it be an upside down flag, which is the sign of insurrection, which is the sign of rebellion, which is the sign of Donald Trump. Sure, it's the wife. She's got First Amendment rights. He then said he had nothing to do with the flag, had nothing to do with the neighborhood dispute, except he reports in the letter, and I'm going to read from it. He reports in the letter that during the altercation between Sam Alito's wife, Martha Ann Alito, and a neighbor, it's actually the neighbor's daughter that was living in the house during COVID, the C word got used. And I don't mean Constitution, if you know what I mean, by the female neighbor against Sam Alito's wife. All right, I'm not here to promote that aspect of First Amendment speech, but I also don't think Martha Ann Alito should have spit on the neighbor. We are now, I get it, they're spitting mad about what's going on in their neighborhood. And Sam Alito, if you're not brave enough to do the right thing, then step down. You want to have your own First Amendment right. You don't want your First Amendment right confused with that of your wife's. You don't want her core political speech being infringed. Then give up the job that gives you lifetime appointment. Hang up the robe. Go back to private practice. There are tons of MAGA think tanks and institutes and Trump PACs that would hire you gladly as their head of First Amendment law or their general counsel or their spokesperson. You can go do that. You'll make so much more money than what you're doing right now, which is ripping the heart out of American democracy and showing it to the American people. So I already made an invitation. I don't know if this letter was in response, tongue-in-cheek, to my hot take demanding the impeachment and the removal of Sam Alito, but he's not going anywhere. And Chief Justice Roberts is a coward because he let Alito write the letter back to Dick Durbin, the senator, who called for Chief Justice Roberts to show up on the carpet and explain himself and that of the Supreme Court to the Senate because they control the budget. I know they're going to argue, no, that's unsavory. Co-equal branches of government. We don't like to come to Congress, right? Like the day that Alito didn't go to the inauguration because he claimed he had COVID, which is when the alleged flag spitting incident happened. Not sure that's true at all. Let me read from the letter. It's a work of fiction, but I don't normally do that on LegalAF, but I have to here. So this is addressed to Senators Durbin and Whitehouse. And it says basically that the letter that was sent by them to the Chief Justice has been referred to him because under the rules, each justice makes his own decision about recusal. Okay. If that's your position. I'm not sure that's exactly true, but let's keep going. He then cites the rule of the new code of conduct for disqualification that a justice is presumed to be impartial and has an obligation to sit unless disqualified. That's under B1, which he refers to. And then B2, a justice should disqualify himself in a proceeding in which the justice's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, that is, where an unbiased and reasonable person who is aware of all relevant circumstances would doubt that the justice could fairly discharge his or her duties. Now, Sam Alito, as he likes to do, created a new requirement. He says, instead of being the reasonable person listening to the facts, he says instead that, because he has to throw politics into it, that a reasonable person who is not motivated by political or ideological considerations or a desire to affect the outcome of the Supreme Court case. Where is that in the rule? Where is that in the rule? That's his backhanded way of accusing both the Democrats and this neighbor of being politically and ideologically motivated in order to try to affect the outcome of the decisions that are pending before the Supreme Court. We're still waiting on the decisions about, like the immunity decision that hasn't come out yet. That's not a requirement under the Code of Conduct. Let me reread to you what is the requirement: that a justice should disqualify himself in a proceeding in which his impartiality might reasonably be questioned. And then that's defined where an unbiased and reasonable person who is aware of all relevant circumstances would doubt the justice could fairly discharge his or her duties. And anybody that rode by Sam Alito's house and saw the upside down flag right after Jan 6th, and then ran by his house in Long Beach Island, New Jersey, and saw the pine tree flag, which is about Christianity and government and also a pro-Trump flag, a reasonable person would believe that he's not able to carry and execute his duties. There's just no way around it. Now, here's the dog ate my homework. My wife ran it up the flagpole to see if anybody would salute part of the letter. The two incidents you cite do not meet the conditions for recusal. The first incident cited in your letter concerns the flying of an upside-down American flag outside the house in Virginia where my wife and I reside. Notice the passive voice. The flying of an upside-down flag. By who? They bought the pole that way? The pole came with the upside-down flag? No. How about the flag that my wife flew and I allowed to fly over my house as a United States Supreme Court member? He can respect her First Amendment rights all he wants, but it doesn't change the fact that a reasonable person would believe that he is not unbiased, that would doubt the justice could discharge his duties. That's the standard. But he goes on, but he continues. Considering, as I've stated publicly, I had nothing whatsoever to do with the flying of that flag. I wasn't even aware of the upside down flag till it was called to my attention. Again, passive voice. By who? You didn't see it alongside your driveway? It's a 20-foot pole and a 20-foot flag. How did you miss it? As I saw it, I asked my wife to take it down, but for several days she refused. All right, so now we got to get into the intimacy of the Alito marriage, about that she's out of control and has no respect for her husband or for the American institution of the Supreme Court. Good to know. My wife's reason for flying the flag are not relevant, but I note that she was greatly distressed at the time, in large part to a very nasty neighborhood dispute in which I had no involvement. That's not entirely true. According to the neighbor, he was out there with his arms folded at or about the time that Martha didn't like a comment that was made that was directed her way. We're back to that C for Constitution word. And she tried to spit on the neighbor. And he stood by passively while this all happened. A house on the street displayed a sign attacking her personally. I'm not sure that's true. And a man who attacked her personally in the fact that it said, "You are complicit." I think it was actually attacking Alito, Alito, the husband. A man who was living in the house at the time, that's the boyfriend, trailed her all the way down the street and berated her in my presence Exactly. In his presence. I thought he didn't know about it. Using foul language, including what I regard as the vilest epithet that can be addressed to a woman. Back to the earlier issue I raised. My wife is a private citizen. She's got the right of every other American. She's made sacrifices to accommodate my service on the Supreme Court, including the insult of having to endure numerous loud, obscene, and personally insulting protests in front of our house that continue to this day and now threatens to escalate. Well, stop making decisions that undermine democracy, and maybe your wife won't get yelled at or have to live in a house where people protest. I am confident that a reasonable person, again, he creates the Alito standard that's not in the rule. A reasonable person not motivated by political or ideological considerations or a desire to affect the outcome of the Supreme Court case. That's not the standard in the code. The standard is a reasonable person possessing of the facts would find that the justice is not impartial and can't faithfully execute his duties. I mean, this is once again another example that Sam Alito can't help himself. He's genetically incapable of applying the law as written. The second incident concerns a flag, the letter continues on page 2, bearing the legend, "An appeal to heaven," that flew in the backyard of our vacation home. Again, the passive voice. It just flew in the backyard. It just flew in like a bird. Ended up on our pole. We don't know how. In the summer of 2023, I recall that my wife did fly that flag for some time period. Oh, good. You recall that it was your wife that put the flag on the pole. Good for you. But I do not remember how long it was there. And what is most relevant here, I had no involvement in the decision to fly the flag. And here's where he accuses his wife of being a flag flyer. Next paragraph. My wife is fond of flying flags. I am not. Again, do I need to get into the intimacy of this marriage and the power struggle that apparently is going on? My wife was solely responsible for having flagpoles put up at our residences and our vacation homes and has flown a wide variety of flags over the years. Yeah, how many of them were insurrectionist tinged, Sam? Did you put a Black Lives Matter flag up there? Did you put a rainbow flag up there? What kind of flags are you flying over your house as a United States Supreme Court Justice? It goes on to say, my wife flew it. She may have mentioned, I'm not sure. How many flag conversations have you had in the Alito household? She may have mentioned that it dates back to the American Revolution, and I assume she was flying it to express a religious and patriotic message. I was not aware that it was also part of Stop the Steal. Okay. Again, you doth protest too much, and you're making me laugh. My wife is the last page. My wife is an independently minded private citizen. Well, aren't we thankful for that? She makes her own decisions, and I honor her right to do so. Oh, there we go. He's such a feminist. Such a feminist when it comes to his wife, the insurrectionist. Our vacation home was purchased with money she inherited from her parents. Oh, here we go. And is titled in her name. I don't even own the vacation home. Again, we're inside the power unit of the domineering Martha Ann Alito. What a coward. It is a place away from Washington where she should be able to relax. And the part that he's missing, and fly flags of insurrection. A reasonable person who is not motivated by political or ideological considerations or a desire to affect the outcome of a Supreme Court case. Again, a standard completely made up, would not believe that he has to recuse himself, and I am not going to. I am duty-bound to reject your recusal request. Sincerely yours, Sam Alito. And I'll also note that it's on the letterhead of the Supreme Court of the United States, Justice Samuel A. Alito Jr. We got to cover this story and wake up Democrats and wake up people in Congress. It is time to go beyond censure and get to the bottom of this with an article of impeachment that's brought to the House floor and voted upon. And I'm going to stay on this kick until it happens. Chief Justice Roberts not only didn't do anything, he referred it over to Sam Alito, who is actually the aggressor here, the target here of the entire ethical analysis, and had him write his own letter self-servingly back to say that he's basically living in an abusive relationship with his wife, and he has no control over her money, the house they bought, or the flagpole. That's what I took away from this as an excuse, for why these flags are flying and why he believes under his new standard that he just created out of whole cloth and out of his backside should apply to him. That's not the standard. And if the standard were properly applied, he'd have to recuse himself. But since he doesn't want to, he's reversed engineered the result. We're going to call it out. One place, LegalAF. Now you know why we called it that. On Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on this YouTube channel for MeidasTouch, and then on audio podcast platforms, all the major ones. If you like what I'm doing, leave me a thumbs up and a comment. It helps with the algorithms. It's not ego, it's algorithm. And then you can follow me on all things social media at MS Popok. And then you can find my body of work over on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. Under playlist or contributor. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.